Okay, Janet.
Well, hello to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to any new members of Benedict's Well, and good to see everyone that joins us regularly for this very special start of the day, if it's in the UK or in this Western Hemisphere. Anyway, wherever you are, hello. Normally at this point we say a little bit about St. Benedict, but Julie has chosen something in her reading which I think is very appropriate. So as we settle ourselves and be aware of one another, O God, come to our assistance. O Lord, make haste to help us. Glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen. Julie has chosen her reading from the introduction to the Oblate Path, a booklet that Father Lawrence wrote for us in 2021, I think it was. It's quite a long reading, but it's so relevant to where we are as we are, not just as oblates, but as members of WCCM. As modern society passes through its extreme period of crisis and, let's hope, an evolution into a better world, we need every scrap of wisdom we can find. The rule of St. Benedict and the monastic wisdom it distills can be a source of hope, vision, and imagination for building a new way of life, both during and after this time of darkness, where the light can shine. But it is sometimes hard for people to see or trust. Many of our institutions are in crisis. Deep flaws are visible in protecting human rights and the just distribution of wealth. Blind greed and a lack of reverence for the sacredness of nature threaten our planet, and simple trust, the essential quality of all human organization, is being eroded. To many in secular society today, monasticism is hardly perceived as a relevant source of wisdom. They are more likely to see it as an antiquarian curiosity, even a way of running away from the world and life's challenges, religious escapism. However, even a brief acquaintance with the great teachers of monastic wisdom, like Benedict himself, can make it clear that this is a gross misreading that deprives us of contact with one of humanity's most accessible sources of wisdom. The real operational values of life, the way of dealing with daily problems, healthy lifestyle, and a respect for human nature with tolerance of differences and weaknesses of body or character. These are at the heart of monastic wisdom and our current concerns. Yet they stand apart from merely secular values because they incorporate an understanding of the transcendent dimension of human consciousness. Heavenly Father, open our hearts to the silent presence of the Spirit of your Son. Lead us into that mysterious silence where your love can be real. Your love is revealed to all who call. Maranatha, come, Lord Jesus. So we come to our time of sitting and listening, and another wise teacher that we're going to hear from. And Gilly's little biography is just doesn't say enough about her. So she says that she's been a practicing Christian and a meditator for many years. And over 10 years ago, she became an oblate of WCCM. But many of us know Gilly. Gilly has had so many roles within WCCM, leadership roles, coordinating roles, bringing people together, and so faithfully, so lovingly. And there is so much more that we could say about Gilly, all of us who know her. And she's chosen a title, Living According to the Spirit of the Rule of St. Benedict, which is why I think she chose that, reading from the Oblate Path. So Gilly, we're sitting and we're here and we're very present to you. Welcome.
Hi to everyone. I know you're from all over the world, so it's not appropriate to say good morning or good evening. It's a privilege and a pleasure for me to be with you here. I'm a little nervous about speaking because I'm more comfortable writing, and I do tend to gabble, but I'll do my best to speak more slowly and clearly. So lovely to see so many familiar faces and so many more that I don't know. When I was asked to speak, I realized it was the Feast of St. Benedict tomorrow. So even today, where some of you are maybe. So I chose to share what the rule of St. Benedict means to me. We're meeting here at Benedict'S Well, a place for meditators from all walks of life and many different parts of the world who want to experience and learn more about the way of St. Benedict. You may be interested to know how this meeting began. In 2020, a group of WCCM members undertook a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, led by Father Lawrence. This was organized by the Pilgrim Center from Manila in the Philippines, and Ella Sanchez and her team, including J.M. Rabuno, worked very hard to make it the success it was. But shortly after our return, COVID hit the world. It was a dreadful time that changed all of our lives. J.M. wanted to do something, and she was inspired to organize a regular online meeting, first of all for those of us who'd been on the pilgrimage, to give us the chance to be together in the presence of God through Christian meditation. And this meeting has helped many of us to face the challenges that COVID brought. Charles, my dear late husband of only a few years, contracted cellulitis for the first time while we were in the Holy Land, so I was not as supportive as I could have been. I remember J.M. very clearly approaching me to ask Father Lawrence to speak at the first meeting. And if I'm honest, I didn't think that Lawrence would have time to address a comparatively small group of people who'd been on pilgrimage together. So I thought it better that she asked him. Fortunately, J.M. listened to and persevered in following her inspiration. The meeting was first called Meditation Amidst the Pandemic. Father Lawrence accepted J.M.'s invitation, and we met for the first time on the 23rd of March in 2020. Lawrence's first talk was on obedience. I remember he said that the word was derived from the Latin word obedire, to listen attentively, to heed. And this is the very first word of the prologue to the rule of St. Benedict, listen. As a group, we remain indebted to J.M. for listening, for following up on her inspiration, and for all her hard work and perseverance. She spent many hours working away in the background, preparing the programs, meticulously emailing participants and contacting speakers week after week. JM is a Benedictine oblate of the WCCM and was supported by Eileen Dutt, who was then the World Oblate Coordinator for WCCM. Eileen suggested that others on the oblate path throughout the world be invited. And Elba Rodriguez, an oblate from Colombia, arranged the first Zoom platform. From the very beginning, this was an international effort. As a community, we became familiar with this miracle of Zoom. And Julia Williamson, who we still see week after week and faithfully looks after the technical side of the meeting, was there right from the start. She also is an oblate of the community. After the Feast of St. Benedict in June 2022, the meeting became known as Benedict'S Well, and it continues to grow and evolve. Alan Chung from Singapore managed the more complex technology of YouTube, enabling people from different zones of the world to benefit. Over time, the roles of various people has changed, but WCCM oblates still do most of the organizing, if not all. Oblates of the World Community for Christian Meditation, just in case you don't know what WCCM stands for, are all Benedictine monastics. So what does this mean? A member of WCCM is defined as anyone who meditates in the tradition of the John Main as passed on in the spirit of serving the unity of all. So we are nearly all, well, I presume most of us are members of WCCM. A WCCM oblate is one of these members who also finds the rule and wisdom of St. Benedict to be a particular source of wisdom. If you want to know more about being an oblate, you'll find all you need to know on the community website, wccm.org. All information is available to everyone, but if you are anything like me, you may have difficulty finding it on the website. It doesn't come up if you put oblate in the search box. But if you want to find more about the oblate path on the website, go to the drop-down menus at the top of the screen. Click on About, and next click on Become an Oblate, and there you will find everything you need to know. You can click on Visit the WCCM Oblates website, or read or download the Oblate Path booklet, which, as you've already heard a bit of, is a very comprehensive explanation of what being an oblate is. I'm also an oblate, as I mentioned before, and I'll tell you how this came about. While attending a John Main seminar at Monte Oliveto about 20 years ago, I first heard about oblates, and I started making inquiries. The role of an oblate in our community was not as clearly defined then as it is today. But I did find out that regular reading of the Rule of St. Benedict was a clear commitment. I picked up this little booklet and was completely put off by it. I had very negative feelings about it. It was written 1,500 years ago for a group of men living in a monastery during feudal times, when one person seemed to have complete authority over others, corporal punishment was readily handed out, and society was completely male-dominated. I was a teenager of the 60s, where flower power and freedom held sway, and the Rule of St. Benedict left me stone cold. What relevance could this set of do's and don'ts, written over 1,500 years ago in a male-dominated hierarchical society, possibly have for me? Christian meditation, however, became more and more the foundation of my life. I managed to meditate twice a day, nearly every day, and seldom missed reading the daily excerpts from John Main's writing, compiled in a book edited by Paul Harris, called Silence and Stillness in Every Season. It doesn't look like this anymore, but I still have my old copy, And if you do want to help in maintaining your daily practice, this to me is the most useful book I have ever come across. Anyway, I retired after 45 years of teaching. Eileen became Oblate coordinator for the UK, and she invited me to attend an Oblate cell meeting in Kensington. And there I was introduced to the rule with a commentary by Joan Chittister entitled A Spirituality for the 21st Century. I'm sure most of you will recognize it. Slowly it began to dawn on me how profound this monastic wisdom is. And I began to appreciate the rule not as a set of regulations, but more like a ruler, guiding the lines of a pencil, revealing the best path to take in all aspects of my life: family, work, friends, social responsibility. I'm not an expert on the rule or a learned commentator, but I'd just like to share with you some of the things I am learning. The rule and the practice of meditation go hand in hand. Meditation teaches us to be who we are meant to be, to let go of self-preoccupation, where everything we do is driven by our egos, and to pay attention to the other. The first word of the prologue to the rule is listen, as I've said before. Meditation is the art of listening, quieting our own thoughts, our own ideas and fears, and in the silence, learning to know our true selves. The chapters on humility in the rule, at first glance and wrongly interpreted, may seem to be self-deprecating, but in reality, they reinforce what meditation teaches. I am not the center of the universe. When I think and act as if I am, I harm not only myself, but everyone and everything else too. St. Benedict lived in a time, in some ways not unlike our own, when social structures were falling apart and the world was in a state of upheaval. Monastic wisdom gives us a source of hope, vision, and imagination for the construction of a new way of life. Monastic wisdom offers strong guidance in dealing with daily problems and the challenges of living in a world where technology, supposedly there to make things easier, makes it much more complicated. The simple way of life, illustrated in the rule, encourages more awareness of how important it is to build a healthy lifestyle, showing respect and kindness to others. But when reading the rule, we must keep in mind that Benedict lived in a time which was completely different from our own in many, many ways. Some instructions would be completely impractical today, and some, I'm thinking of corporal punishment, would be unacceptable. We must judge what he says, not by our own standards, of the standards of our time, but on the basis of the beliefs and practices of the time when he lived. And we'd have to find out a bit more about the time where he lived to make this possible. But we have to adapt certain parts of the instructions in the rule to our modern practices. Throughout the rule, there are places where Benedict himself instructs readers that if they and their community believe there is a better or more suitable way, they are free to make adaptations. Recently, I began reflecting on the rule with a newer commentary. It's called St. Benedict's Rule, an inclusive translation and daily commentary by Sister Judith Satira. This book with its commentary is easy to read, and reflecting on the prayerful questions after each day's reading helps to make the readings more relevant to everyday practical life. Silence is very much a part of the monastic way, and the periods of refraining from speaking seem very challenging to me. But I was intrigued on a recent visit to Bonneau, where anything except essential words are discouraged until after lunch, when Grace, a delightful young Oxford student, asked about how she felt about not speaking, replied, "I love it. I don't have to worry about whether I'm saying the wrong thing." How much energy do we waste unnecessarily trying to find the right words? We worry about not upsetting others, but also about what it'll make them think about us. And of course, we often speak without thinking. Well, I know I do. And it's a rare person indeed who has never thought, "I wish I hadn't said that." It's amazing how much more you can get done when you stop chatting. In today's age, we also have to overcome the challenge of chatting on social media platforms like FaceTime and WhatsApp, which are so difficult to ignore. And we can be in touch with the good thing is we can be in touch with our friends and family across the world. But the bad thing is that it's almost, well, I find it very difficult to ignore notifications on WhatsApp. And then if I turn them off, of course, I sometimes miss things I shouldn't. We've forgotten how wonderful it is to work together in companionable silence, just sharing an occasional smile or friendly glance. This is a wonderful experience and is uplifting and gives us peace. I don't know, when I was a child, I remember sitting knitting with my mother or my grandmother, doing tapestries, not speaking a lot. I came from a house where, believe it or not, there was very little speaking. But it was a joy and a pleasure just to be together. Nowadays, we tend to turn on the television, entertain the kids with number blocks, etc. I grew up, but there was no television, so my growing up was very different. Another thing Benedict also condemns very roundly is grumbling of any sort. And we all know how grumbling and complaining and running down other people gives you momentary satisfaction, perhaps, but it undermines the peace of any community, whether it be our family, our work colleagues, or even my golfing buddies. The rule is very prescriptive about prayers that should be said and the Psalms to be recited. But we are not monks living at a time when the length of day and even of the hours was determined by the season. However, we do need to have discipline in our daily routine and set times aside for prayer and reflection and reading. Since my return from Bonneau, where I had really enjoyed the structured day with definite times for prayer and meditation, I'm trying to implement a similar structure in my own day. I was doubtful whether this would be possible, but I have found that following a schedule, which I've drawn up to fit with the requirements of my own daily routine and commitments, has been very constructive. Of course, I don't always stick to it, and I don't beat myself up when I fail, but it is helpful to me when I do. When a task must either be finished or left because it's time to move on to the next activity, it means I apply more attention to the task at hand. I do what I can, and then I stop. Somehow, this means I do not feel so pressured and enjoy the task at hand so much more. The rules are also very practical. I love to paint. And just the other day, I was reminded of the chapter about caring for tools. I had not painted for a while. Some of my paints had dried up. Some of my brushes had not been thoroughly cleaned, and they were all mixed up. My equipment seemed to be scattered about in different places throughout the house, the shed and the garage. So mindful of the rule, which tells us to treat all our tools as vessels used on the altar, I started to look at my painting equipment with more respect. I set about cleaning my tools and sorting them out. Now they are a joy and a pleasure to use. In the document entitled The Oblate Path, which I referred to earlier and which Janet read so beautifully, the rule of St. Benedict says we should obey from love and not fear. It's a highly flexible document that is clear about commitment and gentle in dealing with failure. The rule makes many exceptions without compromising on its call to commitment and growth. Therefore, it demands to be interpreted, and it has received very diverse interpretations throughout its history. Of course, our circumstances are all different, and the way of living out the spirit of the rule of St. Benedict is both the same and wholly unique for each one of us. As a meditator, my minimum commitment used to be twice daily meditation and reading and reflecting on an excerpt from Silence and Stillness. As an oblate living outside the walls of a monastery, my minimum commitment now has become twice daily meditation and reading and reflecting on a daily segment of the rule with a commentary. I'll end by encouraging anyone who is wanting to know how to follow the monastic way to read the rule of St. Benedict regularly with a daily commentary. Thank you.
Well, I'm smiling, Gilly, because I just feel I feel we should take your recording and put it on our website. And I have a feeling that I will be asked to do that, because that is just been the most wonderful endorsement of our oblate community. It really has. And it's given very practical guidance and references. And I know that in the chats people have been asking about the books and so on that you've referred to, and Mary, I think, has been busily passing on those details. So that really, I was looking around the gallery and people were so attentive, Gilly, to what you were sharing. It was beautiful because it was not just that practical information, but your own journeying and what it's meant to you, and also your thanks to JM and to Eileen and Julia and others, but the three and Alan, who really have made this place, this Benedict's Well, such a special place for us to meet once a week, to pay attention to the other and to listen with the ear of our heart. And you'll see all the messages that are coming through now, Julie, fast and furious, as a thank you. And by the way, as far as I know, Mary faithfully types those up and you get them to reflect upon after today. So thank you so much, and I really will be talking to Eileen and Mark to see what we might do with that wonderful, wonderful testimony of our oblate path. So thank you. And thank you again to those who were inspired to bring us to this place weekly. So let us just end with our closing prayer. May the divine assistance be always with us and with our absent brothers and sisters. Amen. Thank you.
I've put the titles of both translations of the rule and commentaries into the chat for anybody who wants to note down either or both books with a view to purchasing. So, which has kind of messed up my screen on my phone because I've been Googling the correct titles. So yeah, thank you ever so much, Gilly. That was brilliant. It really was. And something because I was doing a bit of research on the quiet, I'm going to have to listen to the last part again because I missed some of it. Turning to next week, our speaker is Yvonne Smith. For the last 4 years, Yvonne has lived alone in the Catlands within sight of the sea and the Nuggets Lighthouse on the southeast coast of the South Island of New Zealand. She is almost at the bottom of New Zealand. Yvonne is a retired minister within the Presbyterian Church of Aotearoa. She has served 3 parishes, plus spent a 13-year period as teaching chaplain for Rangiruru Girls' School in Christchurch. Apologies to any New Zealanders for the pronunciation. Yvonne was received as an oblate in 2021. She marvels at how silence and relative solitude, interwoven with the tidal seascape, has curated a space for her these past 4 years, which has expanded her life. Yvonne is currently writing a reflection on reading Benedict through the lens of the Catlins. She will share some of this ongoing work with us next week. So a nice follow-up actually to Gilly's talk this week, with another perspective on the rule of St. Benedict, which inspires a lot of the community who are oblates or discerning whether the oblate path is for them. So it just leaves me to thank you all for joining us today, this precious time of community on a Monday. I wish you a blessed week and look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye, Gilly.
Peace. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us to be helpful, listening. Thank you to be. I had 2 hours sleep today.